Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of In the Crease. I'm Fiore along with my co-host Bob Nelson. And while we're taping this, we are in the midst of the Stanley Cup playoffs, and we certainly want to talk about those. However, before we get into that, I want to bring up something that made a couple of headlines a few weeks back. And that is the topic of goaltender interference. Apparently, this is a subject that is coming up. The general managers have had several meetings, and they're going to have several more after the cup is all over. And goaltender interference is one of the topics that's coming up on this. Bob, I know just from the games that I've watched, the calls for goaltender interference have been coming up more frequently, and whether they're awarded the penalty or not does not seem to be very consistent.
My suggestion is do what Stolar did in the Toronto Ottawa series. Handle it yourself.
Yeah.
You want a guy not standing in front of you? Move him.
Yeah.
Take your good old-fashioned Louisville Slugger goalie stick from the 70s and smack him upside the head with it. Take your blocker to the side of the face, and guys won't stand there.
The old Inglewood Jack.
Yes. The problem with goalie interference is it's too gray.
Yeah.
It's not black and white. Now, we could go back to the Dominic Hasek goalie interference guy in the crease routine, and there's a reason why the crease should be there. You know, the reason why the crease is there is so the goalie can get his angle. It doesn't mean that a player can't stand there, but they could do something like basketball. You know, if you go through the crease, it's like you got to get out. You got a certain amount of seconds to get out if the puck's not in the crease. But if the puck's in the crease, it's fair game. And a lot of these calls are borderline pucks in that crease area. And the only way you could police it is you got to go one extreme or the other. I don't think necessarily you're going to change too much about it because they've been trying to change this forever. And what if a defenseman pushes them into the goalie?
Yeah.
You know, what do you call there? Defenseman stupidity. That's what I call it.
Yeah.
So the only way you can do it is either keep everyone out if the puck's not in it. But then again, let's go back to the other thing. What if a goalie comes out of that crease? Now what happens?
Fair game.
He should be fair game, but they don't call it that way. Goalie gets knocked off his skates when the puck's coming there and he's outside that crease. He should not be protected, but he is protected. And that's a fine line because you don't want to see your number one guy or your meal ticket get hurt.
Yeah.
But then again, you want to call it both ways, then tell that goalie can't come out of the crease. You want to raise goals a little bit more? Keep that goalie inside that net. Make the crease bigger, but keep him inside that box.
Well, if you do that, you got to get rid of the trapezoid.
You should.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be there.
No.
I mean, the problem with the trapezoid is too many goalies got so good at handling the puck.
Correct.
And that let's be honest. If guys like Ron Hextall or Jerry Cheevers was still in the league, that puck wouldn't get to the trapezoid. They'd get it before it went over the goal line.
Yep.
To handle it.
Yep.
A lot of these goalies are told don't handle the puck because they're not very good at it because they don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
But if you took away that trapezoid, I mean, because you have touch-up icing now. Icing's a joke. Officials don't get it right.
Yeah.
Guys are blowing the puck down before the defenseman even gets to the middle of the face-off circle.
Yeah.
You know, puck's blown dead before. No forecheck, there's no back check in the league anymore, and I get it. Players get injured. Well, let's have touch-up icing. Forget this no-touch icing crap.
Yeah.
Let the goalies be a little bit more free. And this rules, there's nothing's going to happen.
There's a lot of goaltenders that I know. Marty Turco was one. I used to like watching him play just for the way that he had that backhanded, like Larry Murphy flip that he did.
But it's nothing's going to change from it.
You don't think?
They've been trying to fix this rule for how many years? And the only way I know to fix it is to make the crease a little bit bigger and tell the goalie you're outside the crease, you're fair game. You'll see a lot less goalie interference.
Well, do you remember back in the day, if a goaltender went behind the net to play the puck, the guys ran him.
Yeah.
They ran him big.
And they served the consequences. because a lot of teams, after you ran their goalie, they'd either run your goalie or you were getting.
They had an
snot knocked
enforcer
out
that
of
would
you.
come. Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's the way the game
Should be played.
And have you noticed, maybe it's just me, but I've noticed that there are a lot, part of this might be because the goaltenders go down and play on their knees so much, but there seems to be, a lot of these calls seem to be blows to the head, where they're coming in either with the stick or the knee or the hip, and they're knocking people in.
Yeah. The
I
DiPietro injury.
I remember back to the Stanley Cup playoffs when Edmonton was in and Rolly the goalie was in there, and it looked like he was going to backstop them to a cup.
Yep.
And I think it was the first or second game, they took him out.
Yeah, they ran him.
And you could tell it was purposely done. And once they took him out,
Yeah.
I even forget the name of the guy they put in. It was, he played for the Pens for a little bit afterwards, something with a T. But anyway, they put him in.
Tugnut. Don Tugnut.
No, it wasn't Tugnut. Tugnut at least could play a little bit. They put this kid in, and he couldn't stop anything. So that Edmonton lost its big
Milton,
chance.
Yeah. But again, they've been trying to correct this role for years. Go back when Hasek was in the game. They
Yeah.
tried to correct that back then, and it didn't work. Still hasn't worked. They've done nothing. They don't care about goaltending, protecting goaltenders. That's why goalies got to protect themselves.
You need Billy Smith. You need
Yeah.
Ron Hextall. You need that top type
Yeah,
of play
you
to
need
come
that guy
back.
that just don't care.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. And there's lots of things you can do. You take the
Oh,
skates
yeah.
out.
There's a
I
lot
mean,
of things you can do. But I don't think the GM meeting or president meeting or the owners meeting they're going to change this. They're going to fine tune it, but it's still going to stay the same because the officials don't know what they're calling. Because then from week to week, the NHL says, "Oh, we want this called. We want this called."
Yeah.
Instead of calling the rules in the rule book, we're gonna precedent this rule, and we're gonna burn it into the ground till everyone's sick and tired of seeing the people go to the penalty box or losing goals for it.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna change. I mean, can you tell me a guy in Toronto, if they reviewed goalie interference, can tell the difference between goalie interference and going hard to the net? No. Because there's such a fine line there. It's an opinion. It's not a rule, it's an opinion.
Yeah.
If you knock the goalie stick out of someone's hand, that's fact right there. But bumping someone, I mean, players get bumped all the time. And I get it. You're trying to watch the puck, but defensemen back up into their goalies.
Yep, that's true.
You know,
You see
and
a lot of
if
that,
a forward's good, he can take that defenseman right into his own goalie, and he's not touching him. The defenseman is.
Yeah.
Is that goalie interference? What would you call on that?
No, I wouldn't, but I've seen it done.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. The forward ain't interfering with the goalie. His own, the player is interfering with them.
Yeah.
Because that's how good these guys are. And that's what I mean. That's too much of a gray area. And that's why they'll never come up with a distinct answer for this. Just like their instant replay, you can stick it in the garbage can.
Yeah.
Fouled under G, because it's inconsistent. The officials are inconsistent. They don't want to call a good game because they realize 5 seconds later they're going to look up on the scoreboard and overturn it anyways.
Well, doesn't most of that come from Toronto? Yeah.
And who runs Toronto?
Who?
The clown in office.
Yeah. Yeah. So things probably stay the same until we get him out of there.
Yeah.
He can't retire.
Things will
fast
not
enough.
change.
Yeah.
Things aren't going to change. You can say what you want, but did he make this league any better this year? The playoffs have been so awful and watered down.
They are.
You know,
They
like
are.
where's the physical play?
Yeah.
Where's the grind? And it's all ice capades with hockey equipment on.
Well, we want to talk about the playoffs, but before we do that, seems to me there's been there's been a flurry of coaching changes before the playoffs kicked off, and I think there's been more this year than there has been in recent years. A lot of times the coaching changes happen after the playoffs, but this time it seemed like a lot of teams just couldn't wait to make shifts. And one of my favorite coaches, Torts, is gone from the Flyers. I guess you're kind of happy about that.
I'm
You
very
don't-
happy,
you
but
don't
I'm
like
also
him.
very worried.
About
Well, first of all, I'm tired of the recyclable coaches in this league.
the good old boys club.
You know, like Laviette lost his job, and obviously Sullivan took over the Rangers, and
Yep.
there's talk that Torty's going to be his assistant.
No, that was killed.
But it's back in
Back in again?
back in again, yes, for a couple reasons.
Do you think Torts wants to be his assistant?
Yeah, because I don't think Tort's going to get a job right now this year with what he did with the Flyers. And at the end of the Flyers situation, it wasn't very pretty, especially when he threatened a defenseman on that team.
Yeah.
Said if he's coach, your career's ruined here.
Yeah.
Bowsman, Laviette, Torty, they're all out there. I mean, there's a list. Gallant. I mean, there's a list of coaches that are just.
Yeah, they're still looking for a coach for the
Haskell.
Bruins too. They
Yeah,
didn't.
well-
He had an interim, but you know.
Yeah. I mean, here's the problem.
But they just take the coaches from one team and shift them to another
Correct.
team.
That, or you go into the colleges. Now, I'm not a big fan of the guy from Western Michigan that interviewed for the Flyers job. And the reason why I'm not a big fan of him, not because I don't think he's a good coach, but when you're coming from college to the NHL, it's a very hard road to till. Because you're going from kids that, hey, if you don't listen to me, I'm going to pull your scholarship. The guy's making more money than you and saying, hey, listen, sirs, sit down and do what you're told here. You know, when the prisoners run the asylum and most of those college coaches get bullied, look at how Hextall, not Ron Hextall, but Hextall,
Yeah.
coached for the Flyers, and then he went to Seattle. He's out of a job already. Hasn't even been a coach for 3 or 4 years in the NHL, and he's, you know, already on it looking for his third team now. Then you got some young guys, you know, like this Todd Nelson who coaches the Bears. They've always been successful. He's rumored to be in Seattle's big candidate. Manny Malhotra, I think, is pretty unique. He came from the AHL. He's looking to possibly go to Vancouver, which I'm very surprised.
Tocchet left that on his own.
Tocchet left, and
Yeah.
I mean the reason why is because he thought he was going to be in the line for the Flyers job. Now the Penguins don't want him. They don't want him, even though I think he'd be a good choice for Pittsburgh because he knows
And
how
why
to coach.
don't they want him?
Because Mr. Cow, Mr. Harriet Potter, Mr. Fine Waldo in the picture wants to bring his own guy in.
And do you know who that is yet? Have you heard anything?
Yeah, there's a couple rumors I heard. Spencer Canterbury and David Carr. And David coaches at the University of Denver. Both of those guys were kind of his guys. He's had some coaching in her. I think the one coached the AHL Marlins for a while, and the other one he had some time with on an NHL roster as an assistant coach, I believe, in Toronto. So one of those two guys could come out of the front runner. Tocchet's name was mentioned, of course, but I think if Tocchet wants the job in Philly, he should have the job in Philly. The only other guy I'd give the job to Philly would be Ian LePerrier, which is their AHL coach, which their AHL team is doing very well this year. They just bumped off Wilkes-Barre's, and they're put into the last year's champion, the Hershey Bears. The guy's name that I'm really surprised hasn't came into the fold, and I know he probably doesn't get enough respect as a college coach. The only guy that I think could make the drastic change from college to the NHL, but he probably maybe doesn't want the job because he has a very good job at Wisconsin coaching the girls team that I don't know how many championships they won under him, which is Badger Bob Johnson's son, Mark Johnson. And the reason why I think Mark would be a great NHL coach is because he came from a family of hockey. His dad was a great coach in the NHL for Calgary and Pittsburgh, won some cups. Mark played on the '80 Olympic team, was probably the best player on the Olympic team scoring-wise because Joey Mullen decided to go to the NHL. So Mark was their big scorer there.
Yeah.
Played a little bit in the NHL with the Devils and Penguins. He was a draft pick of the Penguins. So he has that pedigree. He's checked off all the boxes for me. Plus, he's a tremendous coach. I mean, that women's team that he coaches there is far head and shoulders above any college women's program in college hockey. I mean, it's fact, not fiction. He's coached the Olympic team, so that's another box he's checked off. He has coached the boys programs at different level. I just think he would be a great fit. But, when you have his ALI money now and all that, and his girls program is one of the few girls programs in hockey that gets a ton of money. Because there's a lot of good hockey players that went on and play in the pro league from Wisconsin or played them in the Olympics for their country that came out of that program. So I think out of all those coaches, his name never comes up. And it's probably because he's getting paid so well and his job security is so good. Why would he want to leave?
Yeah, right.
Because his dad stayed at Wisconsin for how many years before he took the job with Calgary. But that's a guy that out of all the lists that I put together here, and I got tons of names here, and I got some other coaches that are newbies like Brad Shaw, former NHL player, Adam Foote, former NHL player. Some of those guys might take it to the next level also, but I'm just very, very tired of recyclable coaches. There's only one coach that probably shouldn't have been fired this year, that basically told his organization that this is what I want, and if you can't give it to me, I think I need to go on my way. And that was Sullivan, because and I think the Penguins made a big mistake by letting Mike Sullivan walk out that door.
Well, I am really surprised to hear that.
Yeah, Mike
Usually
Sullivan,
there's nothing the Penguins can do that you're in favor of.
no, I mean that was a big mistake in everyone else's favor.
So
They just put the Rangers back on the map.
you like his coaching style?
He's a very good coach, very underrated coach, very underrated. You don't get a tenure like that for being a bad coach in the NHL, because they will fire you in a heartbeat. They'll fire you in the middle of the season. They'll fire you at the beginning of the season. They'll fire you at the end of the season. They don't care. It's not about money there. And he's getting paid the highest paid coach in the game.
And you think he can go to a market like New York?
Oh, absolutely.
And he can
Yeah,
be
absolutely.
successful there and
Yeah.
not succumb
He
to
could
the pressure?
He could coach anywhere. I was very surprised he didn't go back to Boston.
Really?
Yeah, I'm very surprised.
So you're happy that he's gone from
Oh,
Pittsburgh?
absolutely, because if you want to rebuild a team, you need a coach like him to be real. I mean, think about it this way. They weren't that far off the playoff run until Dubas started making trades and getting garbage back in return and getting rid of some of his better players. I mean, okay, they haven't made the playoffs in 3 years, but that's not because he's not a good coach. That's because the general manager ain't getting him good talent in here. Now if the Penguins didn't piss Rutherford off, you wouldn't have had that three-year run of not making the playoffs. Under Dubas's watch, 3 years without making the playoffs, and the other years, and when they did make the playoffs, they got eliminated in the first round.
Yep. Yeah, they did.
With
They
a
did.
guy that's well thought after as one of the best coaches in the league.
So you don't think that reflected on the coach at all? You don't think that reflected on Sullivan at all?
I think it's all about the GM, and that's why I really believe the Fenway group don't know what the hell they're doing first and foremost. And I'm going to look right in the cameras and tell you guys, you don't have a clue. You're all about making money. You don't care about winning a cup here. It's quite evident. And I would really wonder if Dubas is the right man for this job, because when they hired him, I thought no. I thought it was a big mistake to hire a guy like this, because he did nothing in Toronto with the resources that Toronto had.
Yeah.
Now look that he's gone, Toronto's doing very well.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, second round of the playoffs.
Yeah, they haven't seen that in a long time.
Yes. So he's never had a good goalie play for him. He's never went out and got a legitimate goalie in Toronto. Doesn't have a legitimate goalie in Pittsburgh. He overpaid for Mr. Carlson. Letang had another surgery on his heart issue.
Yeah.
Malkin at the end of the season was injured. The only player he has worth a damn is Crosby. He should have traded Raquel when he had the chance. You could have probably got a lot of good players back for him. You let Getzel walk.
Yeah.
Rust is good, but Rust is up and down every year. You got rid of your best defensive defenseman to Vancouver.
Yeah.
So what have you done to this team? Okay, you got rid of a little bit of salary cap, but you were told to get rid of salary.
Yeah.
Because why? Because Fenway wants to make money.
So do you think Sullivan was up for moving some of those older players out?
Sullivan didn't have enough pieces to run the system that he wanted to run. And every time he'd adapt and start building things, Dubas would take another piece off his plate.
Do you think he has it in New York?
Yeah, New York. Look at New York at the beginning of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Look how good they were. What happened? The coach lost them. He lost that locker room. Sullivan won't lose a locker room. They'll compete, and he competed with no goaltending in the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
On that roster.
Yeah, that's true.
And look, when he had goaltending, he was in the playoffs, and he went deep in the playoffs, and he won cups. You imagine if he had Boston's goalies.
Yeah.
I mean, look what he's going to. He's going to probably one of the better goaltending tandems in the NHL with Quick and.
Well, it's Quick coming back.
I heard he's going to play one more year.
He is.
Yeah, because Sullivan's coming back. Because him and Sullivan are
Yeah.
pretty close. Because Quick's USA born and Sullivan's USA born, and
Yeah.
But
Wow,
yeah.
that's pretty good. I was surprised to hear that. I didn't think
No,
he
so
would.
I mean, to me, that was a bad mistake for Pittsburgh, and that's going to show Pittsburgh.
So even if they bring Tocchet in, you don't think that would help at all?
No, Tocchet probably won't come here because I don't think the one reason Tocchet kind of left Vancouver is because it's Rutherford's way or the highway.
Right.
And I think Tocchet wants a little bit more freedom, which I think if he went to Philly, because he is so highly respected, and with the GM and the president there of Breer and Jones, both being Flyers,
Yep.
sometimes the Flyers stick together, and I think Tocchet would have more respect in the Flyers locker room than he would have in Pittsburgh locker room.
Oh, that's interesting.
And even though Tocchet's very good with the young players, you look at the Flyers lineup, they have a lot of young players that need to overachieve, not underachieve. And if you look at a guy like Rick Tocchet, Tocchet's always overachieved because he wasn't the great player that everyone thought he was. He worked very hard at what he did. He's very tough, very physical. He gave an effort on every shift, and he worked his way up to being a first-line hockey player in the NHL. He wasn't supposed to be a first-line guy. He was supposed to be a third-line guy.
Yeah.
More grit, more physical, and he made himself a better player every game he played, and he added, and I think that's what the Flyers need, and he's very good with problem children. I mean, look how well him and Phil Kessel got along. Even though Phil wasn't a problem at all, in my opinion, because a guy can skate and he can put the puck in the net. Why would you dog a guy like that?
Yeah.
That's what you're looking for. That's a dream guy in the NHL. Fast, and puts the puck in the net and plays every game. That's a coach's dream. And Sullivan didn't handle him. Tocchet handled him. Because Sullivan knew how to handle players. Some players you need a pat on the back. That's why you have an assistant coach. Some guys you need a smack upside the head. That's why you have a head coach. And that's why I think Sullivan's such a good coach, because he knew every personality on the team. And I think the other thing that the Penguins did was piss Sid Crosby off. And I'm just going to put this
You mean by getting rid of Sullivan?
Yes.
Ah.
Because put this into your thinking cap just for 1 minute.
Yeah.
There's two reasons why Sid Crosby's playing for Team Canada in this tournament. Because McKinnon's coming to play in this tournament. I think he's playing to play one last time with Fleury, because Fleury's going to play in this tournament before he calls it a career.
Yeah.
And I think there could be a chance that Crosby might not want to rebuild here. And Colorado proved two things to me this playoff run. One, they need a goalie, and two, they need to replace Retinen, because the GM got fired for that trade, putting him in Dallas, and Dallas came back and beat him with the player that they shouldn't have traded away.
Yeah.
That wanted to stay in Colorado. So could you imagine if Colorado this offseason hires a GM, and then all of a sudden they find a goalie, and maybe they make a trade for Sid?
Well, we were talking about that before the trade deadline. And every time I brought it up on the show, you poo-pooed it and said it wasn't going to happen.
Because Sullivan was coach.
You think he had that much influence?
Yes.
Well, that'll be interesting to see. I think Crosby should have gone to Colorado before the trade deadline this year. I really do. I think the Penguins.
Like I
needed
said,
to
you point the
clean
finger.
house.
You can point the finger at anyone on that team.
Yeah.
But like I said, to me, who gets the pass, and this tells you he wasn't even terminated his contract for less than a week, and he already had a job.
Yeah.
That tells you how good of a coach he was. And if Dubas got terminated, how fast do you think he'd find a job? Because to me, this is a big black eye for him.
Yeah.
He's butchered this team. You want to talk about Burke and Hextall butchering this team? They had a lot more wins under Hextall as GM than they did under Dubas as GM.
Yeah. Hey, let's get on to the playoffs before we fast run out of time here. It looks like Connor Hellebuyck, who I've never been really big on, is going to capture the Vezina Trophy this year. But currently in the playoffs, he's got an 85% save percentage, which is horrible for a pro goalie.
Horrible
the shots
for
on
the
goal.
best team in hockey.
Yeah, the shots on goal for almost every game I've watched are abysmal. They can't even hit the 30 shots on goal, which is standard. And there's that phone that rings that should never ring again. And I think the whole situation with the hockey stuff is just absolutely horrendous. Don't get me wrong. I'm watching the playoffs because a bad hockey game, as I've always said, watching a bad hockey game is better than watching any other sport as far as I'm concerned. But I think the play, you look at some of these scores, my God, 6-5. Bettman got what he wanted. He wanted high scoring, goalie not dominating a game,
But not in the playoffs.
But that's what's happening.
Yeah, I know. That's why I barely watch playoff hockey right now because it's so awful. I mean, the only series that was really good and exciting, in my opinion, was the Winnipeg-St. Louis series. Because it was probably the hardest hitting in all the series.
Well, you know what? I kind of enjoy the Carolina-New Jersey series, too.
Jersey showed me nothing.
Yeah, Jersey shouldn't have been there, but at
Yeah.
least they came to the game. They came to fight.
They did, but they were well
Yeah.
overmatched. I mean, Brendan Moore's another one of those coaches. If he lost his job tomorrow, he would have a job the next day.
Yeah.
There'd be 5 or 6 teams fighting over that guy's services.
Yeah.
And name his most talented player on that team.
On
Carolina.
Carolina? Why, you want me to say Burnsy?
No, I'm just saying name their best player. I mean, they're not a lot of household names on that team.
Yeah.
And all they do is go deep in the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's proof that you don't need superstars to win playoff games.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're a team that does it. And I can't wait till they knock the Caps out of the playoffs.
Well, that brought up the sore subject, right? Because he did it.
He did it.
On the last show, you were hoping for the broken leg, but he did it.
Yeah.
And proved once again, as I've been saying all along, he's the best player. He dominates games when he wants.
Answer
He
me
just
this.
dominates. It's just
Who's
amazing.
number 1 and 2 in goals scored per game?
So let's turn.
Just can you answer
Let's
that question?
turn now.
Can you answer that question?
You're going to come up with these
No, you know who
odd
it is?
stats that you
You know who
pull
it
out
is?
from the back of a comic book
you know who it
somewhere,
is?
like Stan
You know,
Savran.
you know who's number 1 at goals scored per game?
Rest in peace.
Huh? Guess who's number 1 in goals scored per game? Mike Bossy.
Okay, from
Guess
the
who's
Islanders
Yeah, guess who's
back
number
in the
2?
day.
Goals per
Who's
game.
number 2?
Mario Lemieux.
Okay, from the Penguins.
Okay, guess who's number? I think he's 9 or 10 goals per game.
Who?
Yuri Ovechkin.
I heard he was 16. You just bumped him up 6 spots.
I think he's went up a few because of the goals.
Okay.
No, seriously. But yeah, how bad is that? How bad is that?
Out of all time, I think that's pretty good.
I know.
It's more than I got.
Because listen, you take the cancer out of it and the back issues and the lack of protection that Mario had.
Yeah. And if my uncle had,
And,
do you want to make a quick prediction on a cup?
Well, my team that I predicted at the beginning of this playoff run and got knocked out because, again, I should have went with the guys that can stop the puck.
Who was it?
It was Colorado.
Colorado.
I thought Colorado did enough. They even
Well,
overcome their bad goaltending.
After the trade deadlines, I said I thought the Panthers did everything they needed to do to repeat. And right now I'm looking at them. Hey, we are fast out of time. Sorry that went so fast. We got more things to cover, but you'll have to wait until the next episode for that. And remember, when it comes to hockey, If you're in the game, you're in the crease.